Welcome to Cody in the Cinema. Today I'm discussing 5 haunted house movies that are perfect for the Halloween season. The first of these is a real classic that I enjoy from an actor I enjoy, George C. Scott, in 1980, The Changeling. Now he plays this accomplished musician, professor, real brilliant guy who has this awful tragedy occur in his life at the very beginning of the film, and as a result of this tragedy and some other events, he ends up living in this house that this historical society has, had in its possession for a long time, and the house really shouldn't have ever been rented to him. There's some spooky happenings in it. There's a sordid history that's involved with the house and some of, like I said, some of its history, and it becomes this great detective movie. There are some moments that are kind of scary, kind of freaky. Not the scariest thing I've ever seen, but there's a really good attic and a really good chair in there, and I believe, the cover even kind of shows you. It's just a fun watch. I like to think of it as like the ideal comfort food horror movie, maybe on a night when it's a little bit cold outside and you just kind of want a blanket and get relaxed and have those kind of vibes. But I really enjoyed George C. Scott, and especially this film, The Changeling. Now, another classic, black and white. This one has been foundational for many films, including the actual remake that it got with, I believe, Liam Neeson. Used to terrify me as a kid. But this is called The Haunting. And the back of the case says it was an evil house from the beginning, a house that was born bad. And we do find out that Hill House has quite a sordid history. There has been a lot of interesting activity on the grounds, inside the house itself, and lots of different people have had lots of different kinds of misfortunes as a result of being there. This doctor, Mark Way, decides to invite some people here. He gets the rights to stay in the house for a time. These people are invited because he believes they will help pull out some of that paranormal energy or whatever's going on there, and he can kind of document it in a scientific way. Now, it is kind of an older horror movie, and not every piece of it ages perfectly, but it is a spooky, well-made haunted house movie that I think has enough scares and enough atmosphere just for its stark black and white photography alone that's really worth watching if you have not seen it before. Now, the scariest of the 5 here, for me by a large margin, and I'm always a sucker for a good found footage movie, is the actual origin of the Hell House movie. So if you've ever heard of Hell House LLC, that found footage movie, this is called Hell House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor. And that name Carmichael there has a relationship to The Changeling, which you may think of if you see it. But this is from 2023. And for me, like I said, personally, this is the scariest of the bunch. This couple, Rebecca and Margot, they go to this house, this place where a lot of tragic things have happened to this family. Some different people disappeared. There was some murder. And they're going to try to catch paranormal activity on camera in this place that's supposedly haunted. Margot's brother Chase also comes and participates in these activities. And whether you really need to have seen Hell House first, which I also really enjoy, I put that on my top 10 found footage list to get the full effect, but there's some creepy clowns in storage there that have a part. There's some spooky peeking around the corner kind of moments. This movie's pretty terrifying. The protagonist, Margot, is a little bit frustrating because she's so zealous that she puts others in danger, which is a common horror movie trope, but this one is downright terrifying. And there's a really good scene in there with Rebecca, who's one of the most likable characters in the movie, where she's on a conference call, and that was a real original set of scares. I love it. I think it's scary despite a few flaws, and I really recommend you see it. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit more artistic, a little bit more original, that really plays around with the idea of reality itself and gives you kind of some unique, cerebral, just internal scares, this would be The Wolf House. If you haven't ever heard of that, from 2018. I have this thing really blew my mind, and it was kind of difficult to process the information, that my brain was seeing through these images, these stop motion images, this paper mache, all these different kinds of techniques that were used. But basically someone escapes this religious colony and goes to this mansion and is taken in by these 2 pigs. Again, this is all animation. You said pigs? Yeah, pigs. And the whole film kind of plays on the 3 little pigs myth a little bit. There's some transformation of the house, of the characters. And the best way to put this is it's an artistic experience that every film fan should have at least once, and it's certainly something every animation fan should have. And that's kind of all I'll say about it. If you haven't heard of it, You know, it does have subtitles if you're only used to English films, but it's truly a one-of-a-kind experience that I highly recommend. And finally, if you want a haunted house movie that's just plain funny, quirky, interesting, and has a really good cast, you may recognize the director James Whale, who directed both Frankenstein and The Invisible Man, those old great monster films. But there's one called The Old Dark House, and it's pretty easy to find this on somewhere, usually for free, but you can get a physical media copy as well. In the remote region of Wales, 5 travelers beset by a relentless storm find shelter in an old mansion. Of course, greeted by Boris Karloff in a campy, delightful role. Melvin Douglas is in the cast, and I believe he was also in The Changeling. And you're going to see a lot of relationships if you watch The Changeling to other haunted house movies. Charles Laughton's in it. He's great. There are eerie props, lots of candles. It's spooky. It's funny. It's kind of ridiculous. You know, the characters, the people who are welcoming these guests from the storm, they're kind of awful to them, and there's some humor there. And notably, Old Rose from Titanic, who was Kate Winslet's older, representation, who's telling the flashback story, she's in that film, so you'll be able to look out for her. I believe her name was Gloria Stewart. And that cast is just so big that they kind of, it doesn't have the same meat and bones as Frankenstein or some of those other really great old monster pictures, but it's still worth seeing and a lot of fun. Maybe something to put on when you're, like I said, in a little bit of a silly mood. And it's kind of a comfortable horror movie as well. But again, it's just not scary at all. So those are my 5 recommendations for you. What recommendations do you have that you want to leave in the comments below? Click that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind. And subscribe if you haven't to Cody in the Cinema.